Welcome to Data Science Perspectives. This series focuses on analytics and data science professionals from across industry to learn about how their career unfolded, what skills they look for when hiring, and what trends they think are coming next. I'm your host, Bill Franks. Let's get to it. Welcome to this episode of Data Science Perspectives. I'm your host, Bill Franks. Today's best of episode is going to feature various executives' opinions on what skills they look for when they're hiring. You'll hear a lot about why technical skills are necessary but considered table stakes, the critical need for soft skills and communication skills. They'll talk about why they assess candidates for integrity, authenticity, and cultural fit, as well as adaptability, problem solving, and curiosity. And again, you're going to hear about those soft skills. I've put the specific timing that each executive talks here on the screen as well, if you'd like to hop to one. And with that, let's get into the show. Taylor Horton, Senior Director, Cox Automotive. You've done a lot of hiring over the years. What are some of the traits or skills, I guess, bringing this back to the other side, when you're looking to hire somebody today, and let's say, you're going to be reviewing resumes this afternoon and doing a couple of phone screens tomorrow, what are some of the key things you're looking for during those conversations and during those resume reviews?
Yeah, so it'd be easy for me to say like a bunch of soft skills. I think, and I think those are very important. But the hard skills have to be there. So there's always this sort of like bar, and hard skills vary by the role and the problems that you're trying to work on. Even within our team, we may hire folks with different hard skills because of the specialty that we think they're going to end up in, or the business they're going to support, and sort of where that business is from a maturity standpoint. So certainly I would say work on the hard skills, make sure that, from both an analytics algorithms and statistics and approaches and those types of things, but also the technical, software development, data platforms, if you can, any of those types of things, any level, any sort of like base level of competency there is super important. And then above that, I think the biggest things are these really tricky things to hire, which are, creativity, curiosity. And then the thing I care about a lot is empathy. Creativity is obviously important. We want, because of what I just mentioned with constraints, if you're constantly trying to understand the problem, and your problem is this sort of complex constrained optimization, then being able to creatively solve that problem versus, every problem's, a nail if you have a hammer, right? It's, if you only know the one approach, and you're going to try to apply it to everything, versus if you have the creativity to try to do interesting solutions and be flexible. So that's certainly one.
Tim Berryman, Vice President, Decision Analytics, Georgia Pacific. What are some of the traits or skills you'd look for today if you were going out and hiring someone either with no experience right out of school or very little experience a year or two out of school?
So the first thing we look for is a culture fit. So even if someone doesn't have the best technical skills in the world, we can train them. But culture fit is critical for us, because you're somebody with good technical, really smart, with great technical skills, but their culture is not aligned to the company. That can be dangerous. So we're first looking for those values and that culture fit. So for us, those values are things like integrity. Have you got humility? Or you're one of those people who always thinks they know everything? Are you looking to continually transform yourself? Because in this environment, change is faster than any other point in time in history. Are you going to be able to treat others with dignity and respect? Are you open to challenge? Are you willing to challenge others? And seeking out the best knowledge. And you've got to have a passion for what you do. So that whole culture fit is and your values have got to align with what we want to hire as a company. So that's like tick mark number one. And when you start getting into the skills, soft skills are critical. If you want to communicate effectively, if you can't communicate effectively, that's really going to limit your career. So we are looking for soft skills in our organization. And then kind of third is that around the technical skill side. So it obviously depends on your role, but areas like Python and SAS are important to us, and having a statistics background is helpful, having a computer science background. So that will vary depending on the role that you go into. But that culture fit and those soft skills are definitely two areas a lot of people don't think about, But that's what we are hiring for first, and then the technical skills comes after that for the role.
Cheryl Presley, Data and Analytics, Southern Company. As you're looking to hire someone, like what is it that you look for these days? What would you tell the student if you're going to come interview at Southern Company for a job on your team, Cheryl? What are one or two things you're really going to be looking for, both in the resume, but even more important when you talk to them in person?
Right. So we, of course, want them to have the technical skills or the skills to do analytics, what they've learned in college. But one of the biggest traits that I'm looking for are those soft skills. How do you communicate with others? How do you listen and respond to other people you're working with? Most companies are very diverse. And so you're having to figure out how to work with people from different backgrounds with different needs and wants and being able to adjust to those changes. So I'm looking for people who are flexible, who are willing to learn, listen to others, and work in a team. Everything we do, we don't do it by ourselves. We may have individual projects, but in the end, our team is there to support us. And we're a large team overall when you think about what a company is. And so how do we support our operations? So I am looking for people with personality, who want to work with others, who want to help others. I think helping your peers and sharing the knowledge that you have and have learned over time is just as important. So really being really well-rounded is important, because our job is not just, sitting behind a desk and coding. It is also working with people to understand what they're trying to implement and deliver to our end customer. And so being able to do that is just as important as the technical skills that we gain while we're in college, So I'm looking for a well-rounded person as much as possible. There are some things I can teach them, that you will learn over time. But people are open to learning, growing, and developing their technical and soft skills. I think is what I'm looking for at the end of the day.
Amit Shetty, Chief Data Officer, Pilot Flying J. What are you looking for these days when you hire someone to be in your analytics and data science organization? What are a couple of the key things you'll be looking for?
Yeah, for me, it starts with integrity. Are you somebody who projects, and I even used the word earlier about authenticity, an authentic approach. You're genuine to who you are. You really want to be here. You've done the research. You know who we are. You've thought to ask the right questions about culture, and that you care about putting yourself in a place to be, successful. Like, it's not just about getting a job, but it's about truly being passionate about putting yourself in a place to be successful for the company as well as for yourself as an individual. So important to make sure that you balance who you are with where the company is going, where the company's culture is, and where it will be down the road. There are a lot of good places out there, a lot of good industries to be in. But you got to follow your passions at some level. If you don't enjoy what you do, you'll never really you'll never give it your all. And that's so critical. So I always look for people who are coming into the door and balancing those things in almost interviewing you as you are interviewing them.
Peter Maynard, Senior Vice President of Data Analytics, Equifax. You've hired a lot of people over the years. What are some of the key things that you look for when you're hiring someone today?
Yeah. So the first thing is, how many, what are the sort of challenges they've enrolled themselves in, right? Like what are the sort of work that they've looked to do? How has that, moved their business materially, like looking at it from a results perspective, and their ability to actually explain their work. It's such an important trait in data science, to actually, let's say they were not in financial services and they're in healthcare and I'm interviewing them. If they can't explain to me, even though I'm not in their industry, exactly what they did, what the problem is that they're trying to solve, the methodology they use, what barriers they overcome. And if they're not really crisp in kind of articulating that, because it's about them, right? It's their lives that they should be pretty good at being able to explain kind of how they did that and how they approached it. Then their ability to communicate with others is going to be challenging, right? That's so important. It's communication's a huge skill because the whole forest and the tree falling in the forest. If you can't hear the tree, what sort of happens, and so I feel within our within our role, it's so important that you have the storytellers, and the leaders need to be storytellers. So I'm hiring at leadership levels now, and so that's really big, is being able to do that. I think the other thing is, do they know how to put together a strategy? I think a strategy is such an important exercise. A strategy is a declaration of where you're going to take the business, and then what it's going to take to get there, right? And strategy, people can say, well, there's big ass strategy, Equifax has a corporate strategy, but every functional area should have a strategy, right? And so how have data science leaders, how have they planned to make their area, their function better than it is today, right? What are they doing? How are they championing their people? How are they training their people? How are they bringing in new technology, new ways of doing things? How are they challenging the processes within their organizations, right? And making those offers like, hey, we could help a new business line by doing these sort of models, right? Or getting this sort of data. So I think building that sort of strategy is so important, having those sort of skills to build those strategies. So those are the things that I look for, at leadership levels, because you need someone to have, at all levels, they have to have a vision. And if every new idea coming along seems like a great idea, and then that's when you get to people like getting off track, both from a career perspective, but from a business perspective. But if you all get everyone to agree, like, no, this is what we're about, and we're all going to work towards getting there and looking for ideas and how to get there. Now, not everything's going to be a straight line, but I think that's really important that folks have an opinion about what success looks like, what their destination is, and then share it broadly. You have to share it with your technical peers. You got to share it with your partners. You got to share it with your internal customers, right? The people who are commissioning you to do work. So I think that's really important.
Christine Joy, Vice President of Business Analytics, Comcast. What are some of the traits and skills you most look for when you hire someone, in general or specifically at the entry level?
Yeah, I mean, technical skills, experience with analytics, that's sort of a checkbox we need to make sure we have on anyone that we're hiring. But it's really the non-technical skills that we focus most on. And we've found the technical is easy to train on. Sometimes those non-technical skills are a little bit harder. And if you think back to that consultative approach and, things around project management or communication, collaboration, drive, curiosity, looking for those sorts of traits are really what we've found can make someone the most successful. So, I think almost just coming in with that mindset of being able to run each project like it's your own business, and not just bringing the technical skills to the table.
Alex Vayner, Managing Director of Data Science and AI, KPMG. Is there anything today as you're hiring that you specifically will look for in a candidate that might not be the obvious? I mean, of course, you're going to want them to have, worked at a decent place, have a good education, but are there any specific things that you think are not the typical box checks that you'll look for as you talk to a candidate?
So the question of talent has really exploded, I think, in the last 2-3 years, especially amidst this great resignation, right? And now there's new terms like quiet quitting that are popping up, and there's a lot of conversations about what it takes to hire excellence and to manage and train excellence. And I think the thing that stuck with me over all of these, last, I would say, 10 years where I've been looking at hiring and managing talent a lot is what Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, said when they asked him this question. He said that he looks for two things, clarity and energy. And then when I heard it, I kind of realized that that's actually something intuitively that I've always been seeking as well, but just didn't verbalize it as well as Satya did. But that's stuck with me, but that's really been what I've been looking for. The clarity is that structured thinking, being able to come in and even in a compelling way, tell somebody what you've been doing for the last 5 years, right? there's clarity that can emerge out of that. And then there's also energy, right? That do you tell that in a way that gets somebody else excited and interested, or do you tell that in a way that puts somebody else to sleep?
I've never heard those two terms used in that way, but I agree with you. I really like that. I think I would never have said that clarity and energy in that combo were important, but when you describe it, it actually makes perfect sense. And it really encompasses, there's obviously a lot of other subtraits that would go into each of those, but that's a really succinct way. So I think that's a great tip that you're able to share with the audience. Russ Pierce, Vice President, Intercontinental Hotels Group. What are some of the core things you look for when you're hiring these days?
So, I mean, to the point, the resume is important. I mean, to even have a conversation with somebody, I'm assuming they've done the work, they can do the work, and they can prove that they can have the technical skills. For me, I look a lot more for communication skills. Can they communicate what they've learned in a way that's understandable for a stakeholder? And, frankly, are they curious? That's something you can't coach. And I think some of the richest, most valuable insights are when somebody goes beyond the problem, right? They understand the nature of the problem that we have, and they want to understand why, and they want to dig in a little deeper. And that's when you get those really amazing gems that I can't direct somebody to go find, right? I want them to bring me things I don't know already. And curiosity is invaluable. So in my mind, curiosity, communication skills are really, really sets a strong analyst into somebody who can drive a lot of influence in an organization.
Linda Birch, founder and CEO, Birchworks. What is the skill or trait that when they interview a candidate, they come back and go, I love this person because, like, what is it that's getting employers' attention these days?
Right. That's really an interesting question because it really does depend on the client. But one common theme is that people want to make sure that the communication skills are there. So they want to make sure that the candidate can develop trust and develop a relationship with the business unit stakeholders. And you do that through solid communication skills, making sure that you can tell a story that is not overly technical to an audience that might not be able to follow that deep of a technical discussion. And how do you communicate to them, gain their trust, and then be able to implement some of the ideas or insights that you are gleaning from the data that you're working with. The other thing that I think my clients look for to some degree, and what they should be looking for in my opinion, is the curiosity that a candidate has. And you can gauge that by the kinds of questions a candidate asks about an application. And I tell my candidates, really when you're interviewing with a potential hiring authority, and I don't care how senior or junior the job is, the same thing holds true. You want to get into a conversation with them. You don't want it to be question, answer. You want to be able to discuss with them your ideas and ask them for feedback and what they think. Get something out of the conversation too. Make sure you do your homework and understand the business problems that this company might be faced with, and get into a discussion about that. So it doesn't say, well, how is your Python? It's so much deeper than that. So. Mm-hmm.
That's an excellent point when I think about it. When I've in the past interviewed people, you're right. And the ones that you leave feeling really good about are those that you really just ended up having this great conversation as though you knew them for a while. Yes. The ones that you just ask a question, they answer, kind of like the teenager. So, Are you good at programming? Yes. Are you interested in doing this kind of modeling? Yes, I am interested in that type of modeling. I mean, it's not, that's, however qualified they may be on paper, to your point, it's the person who come in and explain, well, yeah, I have done a lot of that. And here's why I find it entertaining or interesting. And here's some interesting problems I've run into and how I solve them. Just having that discussion, I guess that's some great advice for people to think about is don't just answer the question, answer it and put some context around your experience.
Right. And then maybe ask them a question back on that. I mean, what are your thoughts? Have you run into this problem before? How might this apply to your situation or your problems, your business problems?
Brad Henderson, Vice President of Data and Analytics, Work Capital Group. Are there certain things you're looking for most today if you're hiring someone, whether just out of school or more experienced? What are some of the key things you're looking for and that work is looking for today in an analytical talent?
Yeah, well, another great question. So, the thing with analytics, it's so new that, there's not specifically one thing. Like, it's not a specific competency that we're looking for. Because within an analytics function, you could have different roles. You data engineer, a modeler, a UX developer, and there's going to be, certain things that kind of, you got to understand programming, you need to understand, workflow development or validation. There's, these inherent things you've got to be familiar with or understand so you can communicate. But in fact, it is the ability to communicate that I find is, the one common thread. Being able to partner, understand the different areas of the analytics value chain, and then being able to share that information amongst individuals is really key. So somebody that understands how to articulate, technical technical language, both amongst peers and then to people outside the analytics organization, because one of the biggest challenges is, when senior people want to really understand something, you've got to be able to do that translation from the technical understanding to what does it mean for the business, or why are we doing this? Why do we need to make an additional investment here? So communication is really important. And then really, the other one is just, passion or motivation. When I'm talking with students, or I'm talking with, more advanced hires, I want to get somebody that's not, that's really curious and interested, and that they've got a fuel that I want to learn more, and they're motivated to do it. Because I always find that, an individual that has real motivation, but maybe a little bit under-tooled or under-skilled, they'll figure it out. They'll spend the extra time in, they'll put the extra reps in, and they will figure out the problem and figure out a way to overcome it.
Kyer Desai, Chief Data Officer, TD Ameritrade. Well, now when you think about in recent times, if you're hiring today, and let's focus here a little more on, let's say, the junior to mid levels in this scenario. What would you be looking for specifically that would help one candidate stand out from another? I know this is particularly relevant, for example, to our students who are about to go start interviewing for what could be their first job. You, as someone who's hired many people over the years, what are you looking for when they show up and talk to you?
Yeah. On the junior side, I would say that technical skill is, those are table stakes, right? We look to hire on, how well somebody knows certain technologies, but also how well does somebody adapt to change, right? Because one thing is constant in the business world is that the environment you walk into today is not the same environment as tomorrow. And it's very difficult to sort of experience that in the educational system, right? The educational system has not been designed to train for change, right? They design you to focus on acquiring certain skill sets, and it's almost like a machine. But the piece that I want to make sure that students understand is that change is constant in the business world, and how you adapt to that change, and the emotions that you express through that change are vital, right? And now on the mid-level side, what we look for is communication ability, right? And so at that point, it's less about technical implementation skill. It's more about how do you go about motivating others on your team, but also around you, specifically your business compadres, if you will, on onboarding an initiative, using data and analytics in novel ways, right? These are all communication and trust building skills. So back to my earlier point, communication is vital. That's one of the things I look for when I interview mid-level folks and even senior level folks.